What would happen if we released a few dozen Eurasian wolves into Wales? Would they thrive, living off the abundant prey in an area devoid of large carnivores? Or would they be met with swift and brutal retribution from locals who've heard tales of wolves devouring livestock and preying on children? Well, this is already happening. Wolf populations in Europe have grown by more than 80% since 2012, and now roam almost all European Union member states. But their reintroduction into some regions has sparked fierce debate over compensation for livestock attacks and local people's rights to manage predators that are technically illegal but effectively tolerated. So here's what we know about the politics of predators and why they might soon be your neighbor. Apex predators have been absent from many parts of the UK for decades, centuries, or even millennia. Much of Britain's wildlife has suffered as a result. A lack of predators means more prey animals like deer and rabbits can thrive and consume vegetation, stripping landscapes bare of shrubs, changing habitats, and reducing biodiversity. Rewilding programs which aim to restore natural processes to an area by reintroducing missing species are increasingly addressing this issue. Scotland already has Eurasian lynx and plans to introduce beavers. England has Eurasian otters, red kites, hen harriers, and white-tailed eagles. And Wales is preparing for its first ever wolves since the Middle Ages. It's a big step and one that will require careful preparation and management, but the benefits could be huge. Wolves help control prey populations and encourage biodiversity. They're also generally shy, elusive creatures. You're more likely to hear them howl than see them. While there are anecdotal accounts of wolves attacking humans, these are extremely rare. And where there are abundant prey species, wolves don't usually target livestock or pets. Wolves have a preference for foraging on ungulates like deer, reindeer, moose, and wild boar. When those are scarce, they'll happily chow down on smaller mammals like rabbits and rodents. But where there's plenty of both, as is the case in some parts of Wales, wolves typically don't go after farm animals. Wolves also kill each other's prey. Stealing is a part of their diet. And while that might seem counterintuitive, it is actually good news for farmers because it means wolves are eating animals that would otherwise be eating their crops. In essence, wolves are a kind of highly efficient, albeit furry, contracted security service that takes care of troublesome deer and rabbit populations. That's the theory anyway. It's a lot like the 1995 reintroduction of wolves to Yellowstone National Park, which scientists believe had a knock-on effect known as a trophic cascade. By eating the most abundant herbivores in the park, elk, wolves indirectly protected a wide variety of plants. Elk had been overgrazing the landscape, stripping it bare of vegetation and eroding riverbanks. With fewer elk around, the vegetation came back, and with it, a host of other species. Aspen trees, for instance, saw a 152-fold increase in density, according to one study. But not everyone was happy with the wolves of Yellowstone. Ranchers worried about the threat they posed to their cattle and sheep. In fact, when the first wolf pups were born in the park in 1996, state officials killed 2 of them after they found the carcasses of 2 calves nearby. But while it was touch and go at first, eventually things settled down. Today, wolves are accepted and even beloved in the park. Ranchers have come to accept the risk their livestock may be attacked, and state officials no longer automatically kill wolves that get too close to cattle. The rest is history. But not every story of reintroducing large carnivores into human-dominated landscapes goes so smoothly. In recent years, parts of Europe have seen dramatic increases in wolf numbers. The International Union for Conservation of Nature estimates that there are now around 17,000 Eurasian wolves across 21 European countries. While wolf numbers remain low in some areas such as central England, thanks in part to extensive persecution, they've increased by as much as 300 in France since 1970. But their range has also expanded dramatically. Between 2000 and 2017, wolves colonized 9 new countries, including Germany, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Belgium. They're now found everywhere except for 5 European Union member states: Denmark, Ireland, Greece, Cyprus, and Malta. This represents a threefold increase in the number of countries where wolves live compared to 1,970. One reason for this expansion is that there are simply more wolves around to find mates. As populations grow, individuals disperse to find new territories, increasing the likelihood of colonization in new areas. But another key factor is that wolves are taking advantage of changes in how humans use land. As farmland becomes more intensively managed and forests are better protected, wolves are expanding into both. Their historic range, largely thanks to Europe's complex patchwork of agricultural and protected areas, populations are finding plenty of space and resources in human-dominated landscapes. Wolves are generalist predators that eat a wide variety of prey and can adapt to changes in prey availability by shifting what they eat. Yet, despite their growing numbers, wolves remain persecuted in some parts of Europe. They're victims of deliberate persecution by farmers and hunters, as well as accidental killing through road strikes and, in some cases, lethal control measures such as shooting. In Spain, wolf numbers have remained relatively low, in part due to deliberate killings. Since 2006, there have been more than 500 confirmed cases of wolves being deliberately shot dead. The legal threshold for culling wolves in Spain is met when there are more than 21 wolves per 100 square kilometers. In reality, the actual number of wolves per 100 square kilometers is thought to be much higher than reported. So it's believed that the government is allowing more wolves to be shot than it should. In other places, attitudes towards wolves are slowly shifting. In 2020, Italy's upper house of parliament voted to reintroduce wolves into the country's forests. At the time, they were already present in northern Italy, and the reintroduction went ahead without any fuss. In February 2023, Italy's lower house passed a law clarifying that wolves are permanently protected throughout the entire country and outlining rules for coexistence between humans and wolves. But the situation in Italy is far from straightforward. The same month, the country's Ministry of Agricultural, Food Sovereignty and Forestry Policies approved a plan to cull up to 75 wolves in the Abruzzo, Lazio, and Molise National Park. The move was controversial. Animal rights activists argued that the cull was unnecessary and cruel, but regional officials said it was vital to protect local livestock. This reflects a broader pattern across Europe. In many areas, wolves aren't persecuted directly, but they do fall victim to policies aimed at protecting livestock. The European Commission estimates that in 2022 alone, wolves were killed more than 3,000 times across 16 European countries through preventive measures such as shooting. And yet, in most of these countries, the presence of wolves is technically illegal. In fact, only 7 countries have formally recognized the presence of self-sustaining wolf populations: Austria, Finland, Lithuania, Sweden, Slovenia, Slovakia, and Switzerland. And in most of these countries, wolves still face intense pressure and persecution. So how will the introduction of wolves into Wales affect this fraught history? Only time will tell. But it might depend on how the communities most affected by the reintroduction perceive the risks wolves pose and whether they feel fairly compensated for any losses. On the one hand, Wales's rural communities are accustomed to dealing with the impact of large carnivores on livestock. Golden eagles have been culled there multiple times in the past to limit their impact on lambing flocks. So communities understand the challenges associated with predators. On the other hand, Wales's current sheep farming practices mean that thousands of lambs are culled each year before they've had a chance to be born. This raises questions about the value placed on animal lives and whether a different approach to farming could reduce future conflicts with wolves. The truth is that wherever you live in the world, it's becoming increasingly hard to avoid encounters with wildlife. Reintroducing large carnivores to areas where they used to live is just one way that we're trying to restore balance to ecosystems that we've severely disrupted. If we're going to continue sharing our planet with other species, we need to address the root causes of these conflicts. Yes, there will be instances where a wolf kills a sheep or a bear kills a calf. But these instances are far more likely when farmers don't take steps to protect their animals. In essence, the real issues lie in how we farm, where we live, and how we grow food. And until we address these, we should be prepared to coexist with a wide variety of animals, including our furry neighbors.